Hello, everyone. I am back at it again with another tier list. As many of you know, The Boys TV show has finally concluded after 5 whole seasons. And so I think this is the perfect time to rank and tier each of the seasons. Now, I have over here Butcher. He's going to be representing season 1. I've got Stormfront, and she'll be representing season 2. I've got Soldier Boy. He will be representing season 3. I have A Train representing season 4. And finally, I have Homelander representing season 5. So I'm going to rank all 5 of the seasons from the season I think is the strongest to the season I think is the weakest. I'll talk about each of them a little bit. Briefly, right before I get into the video, I do want to mention that my Kickstarter is running. The goal is $100. It has 15 days to go. We're right now at $66, and so a copy of this game is only $1. And so I would appreciate any and all success that I can get. But that's it. Without further ado, we're going to jump right into the video. Now, I'm actually going to go from the weakest to the strongest. And to me personally, the weakest season of The Boys is actually going to be season 5. I think season 5 was the weakest season. I don't necessarily think season 5 was a bad season. I actually wouldn't go that far, but just in comparison to the previous seasons, I think it was pretty weak. To me, season 5 had a lot of strong individual episodes, but as a whole, season 5 is definitely the weakest season. The biggest issue with season 5 is it wastes a lot of pretty precious screen time. Another thing is season 5 features way too much gross out humor. I mean, The Boys has always had gross out humor ever since season 1. But in season 5, it kind of feels gratuitous and just excessive, and it's like we've got more important stories, and we could be watching much more important scenes, but instead we're watching this gross out scene or that gross out scene. So that's my thing with season 5. Now, some highlights, A Train's death. I actually really like how they played out for the most part. The return of Soldier Boy, I also personally really enjoyed that. Also, going back to A Train's death, I like the effect it had on Homelander. It actually seemed like it seemed like A Train's death really actually mattered to him. So, but that's what I liked. A couple of things I didn't really like is the V1 arc. It just kind of felt like a big waste of time, in all honesty. The V1 arc felt very anticlimactic. I wasn't really a fan of it. Also, the whole Homelander, losing it and kind of going insane. I wouldn't say that was anticlimactic. I'd just say it was, in my personal opinion, just pretty disappointing. Let's be honest. I wish it would have played out a little bit in a little bit more of an exciting way, especially for the finale. I've heard some people say that there might have been some, arguably, not misinformation. What's the word for it? False advertising with the finale. I hadn't seen that myself, but that's what I've kind of heard from word of mouth. So, if so, I mean, that's not good. That's another strike against season 5. Another plot point that I personally was disappointed with was Ashley takes, Compound V, and she gained psychic powers or whatever, sort of. I didn't really like the way that played out. I liked it at the very beginning of season 5, but to me, it ended up being disappointing. I feel like they could have done much more with that, and it just felt like sort of like an after plot, side plot that could have actually really mattered for the main plot. So, that's season 5. I definitely think it's the weakest one. Next up in fourth place, the season I think is the fourth weakest. Although honestly, I think first through fourth place are all notably better than fifth place. It's actually going to be season 4, right there in fourth place. Yeah, season 4. To me, season 4 is the most ambitious season, which is good but also bad. It can be very exciting at times, but unfortunately, season 4 struggles to handle all of the plot points because it's just juggling too much. Now, I do think that season 4 mostly pulls it off, in all honesty, but At times, the writing is kind of iffy. I mean, there's just no denying that. So for season 4, it introduces a lot of like new characters who I think are actually pretty decent. We have Huey's mother, and I actually like the way that played out. Sister Sage, which mixed. I like the character, but when it comes to writing, her superpower and how it plays out, it's kind of sketchy. There's Tech Knight, who is okay. I have mixed feelings about Tech Knight. And then there's Firecracker, who I actually do like quite a bit, actually. Um, Now, there is the interesting plot point of, Ryan kind of figuring out how Homelander is and kind of seeing Homelander's darker side, which is, to me, always a highlight whenever I rewatch season 4. Um, there's the whole soup virus thing, which was okay, kind of interesting, but personally, I didn't really think they were going to go through with it. I didn't think it was ever going to become something big. And, if you've seen season 5, that is kind of how it goes. So for me, that's not really a big drawing point for season 4. A-Train turns on Homelander in this season, which, again, is another good highlight. And there's also the whole, new Black Noir thing. So, I mean, season 4, it had a lot going on. But it mostly pulls it off, but again, it was juggling a little bit too much, and to me that puts it in 4th place. Although again, it does put it over season 5, that's for sure. All right, so next up in 3rd place, this may surprise people. It's actually going to be season 3. So to me, season 3 has a lot of exciting plot points. It also explores the history of the boys' universe and the history of how, Compound V has kind of affected people and the different generations. Through Mother's Milk, we kind of explore some of the intergenerational trauma that's kind of affects certain, individual families just because of superheroes and some prejudice and racist and whatnot. Another probably my favorite plot point in season 3, and one of my favorites in the entire show, is the Temp V plot point. I really like the way that Temp V plot point played out. I like the way it sort of affected Huey, who kind of felt powerless whenever Starlight was in danger. I like how that was resolved at the end of the season. That to me is like a gem and like a real highlight of the season. But something I also really liked about season 3 is the father son plot point between Homelander and Soldier Boy. It was kind of a slow burn and didn't really hit until more so the end of the season. But I'm a big fan how that played out. So, and also there's a couple other things. There's the co-captain arc, which I thought was kind of interesting. It was a bit short-lived, but it was interesting. There was the whole Maeve and Butcher team up, which I actually found to be pretty interesting as well. So, to me, season 3 has a lot going for it. I really like it, and I pretty confidently put it in 3rd place. All right, next up is going to be 2nd place. The season that I think is not quite the first, but still really, really strong. And 2nd place is actually going to go to season 1. Now, my thing with season 1 is one of the greatest strengths of season 1 is season 1 is very self-contained compared to the rest of the season. Obviously, they don't know if the series is going to get renewed, and it did end on a sort of cliffhanger, but it also, you could pretty safely kind of, figure out, okay, this person's probably dead. So it's, for the most part, very self-contained, and to me that's a pretty big strength of season 1. Season 1 has to set the world of the boys up. But despite this burden, I think season 1 still manages to create a pretty interesting and compelling world. And it does a good job, in my opinion, showing us a realistic world where superheroes exist, but I mean, they're still people, and people can do some pretty messed up things. So, I think season 1 has a good amount of action, and I also think there's quite a few interesting twists here and there. And I actually think of all of the seasons, I actually would say that, in my personal opinion, season 1 is like the most tense season of all of them. There are several incredibly tense moments where, even on a rewatch, even though I know what's going to happen, the tension on screen, it's powerful, and it really, really, really gives season one some pretty interesting rewatch value, I would say. Um, you've got a couple of characters like Popclaw. I enjoy the way that she kind of affected A Train. You've got Translucent. I like the way the story uses Translucent. Essentially, Translucent and Huey, their interaction where it's like, you're not a killer, man. Come on, just let me go. We sort of see how the death of Huey's girlfriend has kind of awoken a sort of butcher-esque side of him, a more violent side. And so I remember when I first saw that moment, I thought to myself, man, Huey's not going to do it. And I was like, oh man, he actually did it. I was surprised. Even Translucent didn't think he was going to do it. He was walking away. So that to this day is a very interesting moment and a highlight. Homelander's relationship with Stillwell is very interesting. It's very messed up, don't get me wrong, but it's messed up in like an interesting way where you kind of understand why Stillwell is handling Homelander the way that she does, just given his issues and whatnot. And so, to me, season one holds up very well. And I would say it's the second best season, honestly. But now we get to the best season. And to me personally, again, you might disagree, And again, to me, honestly, all the seasons are decent. I'd say season 5, again, it's the worst one. But especially 4 and up, I'd say they're all actually kind of good at the very worst. But to me, season 2 is the cream of the crop, definitely. Season 2 has great characters that push the main cast into some pretty interesting directions narratively. And so I always enjoy just rewatching it. It's just very, the writing is very tight and it's just very well written. There is some great action. There are some interesting twists. I mean, the twist with Stormfront is really good. Even looking back, it was very clever. I like the way they handled that. So yeah, season 2 to me, I can rewatch season 2 way too many times. I just really enjoy season 2. Season 2 also introduces quite a few new characters. It introduces Ryan. We get to learn about Ryan and Becca. And I think the dynamic between Ryan, Becca, Homelander, and Butcher, I think it's very interesting. Very interesting. Whenever that those interactions are going on, my eyes are just glued to the screen. Also for Kimiko, her brother Kenji, he's introduced, and seeing how that affects her is very interesting. Again, Stormfront, to me, always a highlight, to me, one of my personal favorite characters, just because, to me, Stormfront, she's a character you love to hate. And that's on purpose, and so she's very well written. You get to meet Starlight's mom in this season, and so you get the background and you get some context for the environment Starlight grew up in, which is pretty interesting. Stan Edgar is also one of the reasons why season 2 is just so fantastic, because Stan Edgar he doesn't take anything from anybody, and just his interactions with Homelander are just incredible. And I know that I'm not the only one who really likes those scenes. I've seen there are several YouTube videos that kind of explore their dynamic and how it works, because Stan Edgar has no powers. But he's not afraid of Homelander. He sees no reason to be afraid of Homelander. So Stan Edgar is definitely a strong highlight of season 2. Not to mention at the end of season 2, the Newman reveal. I remember watching season 2, seeing that reveal and thinking, wow. Now I'm really excited for season 3, but also it was a great way to end off season 2. So to me, season 2, it's in my personal opinion, it's easily and it's by far the best the best season of The Boys by far. If you were looking to rewatch a season, I would recommend season 2 really over all of them. And then probably after that, season 1. Although I can see some people saying that, they prefer season 3 over season 1. One thing I forgot to mention with season 3 is, I mentioned for season 5, it kind of wastes time and has way too much gross out humor. I'd say the same applies to season 3 to a certain extent. There actually was a certain episode where the actors were actually pretty, in interviews, they were pretty uncomfortable during certain scenes because of how that episode is. It's very gratuitous with its fan services, to say the least. And most of you probably already know the episode that I'm referring to. Not going to say the name, but you know, more than likely. So that kind of was one of the only real strikes against season 3. Um, but yeah, that's actually going to be it. This is my personal feelings on the boys. It was, it's been a wild ride watching the boys from season 1 and just seeing how things played out. Overall, I'm pretty satisfied with the series. Now, obviously, I am a super hero shill. I love the superhero genre, and I've always loved it, and probably always will. So I do have a bias there. But even still, I think that we got more good episodes from the boys than we did bad. So with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and end the video. If you like the video, or if it got you thinking, or if you want to, let me know, how I'm wrong about this or that, if you want to have a discussion, just feel free to leave a comment. And if you like the video, I encourage you to leave a like. I encourage you to subscribe. Again, if you're so inclined, I encourage you to, even if you leave just $1 for my Kickstarter, I would appreciate just, any little support that I can get for it. So with all that being said, I hope that you have a good day. I hope that you have a good life. And more important than anything, stay safe out there.